There is an invisible power that flows through the words you speak. Every time you open your mouth, you are not merely communicating thoughts. You are shaping realities. The universe, in its unseen wisdom, responds to faith-filled words. When a person begins to speak not from fear, not from doubt, but from faith, something begins to shift in the atmosphere. The invisible becomes tangible, and the impossible begins to bow before the power of spoken faith. Words are seeds. When they are spoken, they fall into the soil of the Spirit and begin to produce after their kind. A word of defeat gives birth to discouragement. A word of fear gives birth to limitation. But a word of faith releases creation, movement, and divine alignment. What many fail to realize is that they are living in the harvest of the words they spoke yesterday. Life has a way of echoing your own declarations back to you. When you say, I can't, life agrees. When you say, I will, life also agrees. The spiritual realm is obedient to your confession. Faith is not silent. Faith must be spoken. It must find a voice, because unspoken faith remains dormant. The power of spoken faith is that it calls things that are not as though they already exist. When you speak, you are not describing your current reality. You are commanding your future. You are not waiting for the door to open before you speak. You speak, and the door opens in response. This is why the words of a believer are not casual sounds. They are divine instruments. Every declaration is an invitation for heaven to intervene. There are people who pray with their minds but speak with their fears. They say they believe, yet their confession contradicts their faith. The mouth must agree with the heart. Belief and speech unite. A supernatural transaction takes place. The unseen begins to respond to the seen, and divine favor begins to move in alignment with the words spoken. Faith is the bridge between the invisible and the visible, and words are the vehicles that travel across that bridge. Every great breakthrough begins with a word. In the beginning, when there was nothing but darkness, the Creator did not analyze the darkness. He spoke to it. He said, "Let there be light," and light appeared. That is the eternal pattern of creation. Speak before you see. Many people wait to see before they speak, but true faith speaks when there is nothing visible to support it. When faith-filled words are spoken into the void, creation responds. When you speak words of faith, you are giving permission for divine energy to move on your behalf. Your declaration sets in motion forces that are beyond your comprehension. The atmosphere begins to align with your conviction. Closed doors begin to sense the vibration of your faith. Obstacles begin to tremble because spoken faith does not recognize barriers. It only recognizes promises. The moment your words are released, something begins to happen that the human eye cannot yet see. The tongue is small, but it carries the weight of destiny. It has the power to bless or to curse, to build or to destroy. Many have built prisons with their own speech, confessing limitation, failure, and fear until they became trapped in their own vocabulary. But those who understand the power of spoken faith use their tongue as a key. They speak freedom. They speak freedom. They speak healing. They speak abundance. And the moment they do, the locks begin to turn. Faith-filled speech is not positive thinking. It is spiritual authority. It is the alignment of human will with divine purpose. When your words agree with the word of promise, they carry the same creative force that once spoke worlds into existence. You do not beg for open doors. You declare them open. You do not wait for change. You speak change until it manifests. Spoken faith refuses to bow to circumstance. It looks at the mountain and says, move. It looks at the storm and says, be still. Every word you speak in faith becomes a seed of destiny. That seed may not break the soil overnight, but beneath the surface, something is happening. Every time you speak again, you water that seed. Every repetition strengthens the root. And though nothing may appear to change on the outside, the invisible process is already underway. One day, what you have spoken will stand before you in reality. What began as a declaration will become a manifestation. This is why you must guard your speech. You cannot speak faith on one day and doubt the next. Your words must be consistent, steady, unwavering. The language of faith is persistence. When you say it once, the atmosphere hears it. When you say it twice, the unseen begins to stir. But when you say it 3 times, the doors begin to open. Not because of repetition alone, but because each declaration deepens the conviction within you. The more you speak faith, the more your heart believes. The more your heart believes, the more your reality shifts. Spoken faith transforms weakness into strength, lack into provision, despair into hope. It calls forth what is hidden and gives it shape through sound. Faith that is silent remains potential, but faith that speaks becomes power. Belief is not born in a single moment. It is built through repetition. The mind is like soil, and repetition is the steady rain that nourishes the seed of faith until it grows deep roots. Every time you speak a word of faith, every time you repeat a promise, every time you affirm what you have seen in your heart, you are training your inner world to align with your vision. Repetition is not a sign of doubt. It is a declaration of determination. It is how the unseen becomes unshakable within you. When something is spoken once, it touches the surface of the mind. When it is spoken again and again, it begins to enter the heart. The heart is the true seat of faith, and it is shaped not by what we hear occasionally, but by what we hear consistently. What you repeat becomes what you believe, and what you believe becomes what you experience. Repetition is not about convincing the world. It is about convincing yourself. It is about building an unbreakable conviction that no circumstance can silence. There are people who say, I already said it once, why must I say it again? They do not realize that the words we speak are not only commands to the world around us, they are also instructions to the mind within us. Every declaration is a brick in the wall of belief. Every repetition strengthens, ends the structure of confidence until it becomes immovable. When faith is spoken again and again, ceases to be a thought and becomes a reality engraved in the spirit. The reason repetition is powerful is that it transforms truth into conviction. You may know something in your mind, but until it becomes real in your heart, it will not shape your life. The mind can be persuaded, but the heart must be convinced. Repetition is the process of convincing the heart that what it hears is true. When you say, I am capable, once your mind may argue. When you say it 100 times, your heart begins to agree. The argument fades and agreement takes over. Faith that is not reinforced will fade with time. Doubt, fear, and failure will always whisper in the background, but repetition silences them. Every time you repeat a word of faith, you drown out the voice of fear. Every time you declare your vision aloud, you push back against the shadow of uncertainty. The more you say it, the stronger it becomes. Repetition is not vain, it is victory in progress. It is how weak belief becomes strong conviction. Even in nature, repetition creates power. A single wave may seem harmless, but the constant crashing of waves can carve through rock. The same is true for faith. A single declaration may seem small, but repeated declarations carve through resistance. Every time you speak what you believe, you are reshaping your inner reality. You are carving out a new pattern of thought, a new way of seeing, a new way of being. The mind begins to accept what the mouth declares. Many people pray once and stop because they see no change. They speak once and wait for results. But the truth is, repetition is the engine that keeps faith alive. Each repetition adds energy to your declaration. Each repetition digs deeper into the unseen. Faith grows by hearing, and hearing comes by repetition. The moment you stop speaking, the momentum slows. The moment you speak again, the fire reignites. Repetition builds faith the way exercise builds muscle. One movement may not show results, but consistent practice produces visible strength. Each time you repeat words of life, you are exercising your spiritual authority. You are strengthening your inner confidence. The more you repeat, the stronger your belief becomes, until what once felt impossible now feels inevitable. What seemed far away now feels near, not because the situation changed, but because your inner world did. When repetition becomes a discipline, it shapes your perception. You no longer see obstacles the same way. You no longer listen to the voice of limitation. Begin to see doors opening even before they open, because your mind has already accepted the reality of breakthrough. Repetition builds a mindset that expects miracles. It teaches your spirit to see light even in the dark. There are those who repeat negative things every day without realizing it. They say, I can't, it's too hard, it will never happen, and their repetition becomes their reality. The principle works both ways. Repetition builds belief, whether in failure or in faith. That is why you must choose your words with purpose. Let your repetition be filled with life, not limitation. Let your daily words be declarations of hope, not habits of fear. When you repeat words of faith 3 times, 10 times, 100 times, you are not performing a ritual. You are transforming your identity, teaching your heart to believe what your spirit already knows. Each repetition rewires your thoughts. Each repetition strengthens the bridge between what you believe and what you see. The outer world always bows to the inner world, and repetition is how that inner world is constructed. There is a rhythm to faith. Speak, believe, repeat. Speak again, believe deeper, repeat once more. Each cycle takes you further from doubt and closer to manifestation. Repetition is not about forcing a result. It is about forming a mindset. It is about establishing a foundation so strong that even when nothing happens outwardly, you remain unshaken inwardly. The mind may forget what it hears once, but it cannot resist what it hears continuously. When your repetition becomes rooted in conviction, even silence cannot undo it. Begin to carry your declarations not just on your lips, but in your thoughts, your posture, and your decisions. Repetition builds a belief so solid that you no longer try to believe, you simply know. And when you reach that level of inner certainty, every door that once resisted begins to respond to the authority of your faith. Every closed door carries a message, and that message is not rejection, but revelation. It is not saying, you cannot enter, but rather, show me your confidence. Life itself tests those who knock to see if they truly believe they belong inside. The door is never the enemy. It is the measure of faith. Confidence is the key that turns what is locked into what is open. When confidence speaks, doors listen. When doubt hesitates, doors remain still. Confidence is not arrogance, and it is not pride. True confidence is quiet faith wrapped in assurance. It is the inner knowing that what has been promised will unfold. When you approach a closed door with fear, the door feels it. When you approach with hesitation, the door mirrors your uncertainty. But when you come with the calm strength of conviction, the atmosphere shifts. The same door that was closed to fear opens wide to faith. The world responds not to need, but to certainty. There are those who stand before opportunity and wait for it to open automatically. They expect movement without motion, favor without faith, outcome without action. But doors do not open for those who simply wait. They open for those who approach with confidence. Confidence is motion in the spirit. It is the unseen hand that knocks boldly when others retreat. It is the voice that says, I belong here, even when the surroundings say otherwise. Confidence is magnetic. It attracts cooperation, respect, and opportunity. It does not beg, it declares. It does not plead for permission, it walks with purpose. When you speak with confidence, listen, when you act with confidence, systems shift. When you move with confidence, even obstacles begin to make room for you. Confidence tells the world, I am not asking to enter, I am announcing that I have arrived. That tone changes everything. Closed doors often intimidate those who do not yet understand their own power. They see a lock and assume it means limitation. But confidence sees a lock and recognizes a challenge meant to reveal strength. Every locked door exists to test what you truly believe about yourself. When you face resistance, it is not proof that you are unqualified. It is proof that you are being invited to express greater faith. Confidence is the response that says, this door was meant for me, and it will open because I will not stop knocking. Confidence is the outward expression of inner faith. It is faith wearing a voice, a posture, and a presence. It does not wait for approval. It proceeds with conviction. The confident heart does not shrink in the presence of giants because it knows that authority is not measured by size, but by certainty. When confidence walks into a room, it changes the air. People feel it before you speak. It is not noise or performance. It is alignment between belief and behavior. Doors are spiritual as much as they are physical. Opportunities, relationships, positions, and breakthroughs all function like doors. They open in response to inner energy. A fearful heart sends signals of uncertainty. But a confident spirit releases waves of authority. That is why two people can face the same situation. One will see rejection and the other will see access. The difference is not the door, it is the confidence of the one who knocks. Confidence is built through preparation, but it is activated through declaration. The moment you begin to speak with faith, you summon confidence. The moment you act as though it is already yours, confidence begins to take over. The voice that trembled before begins to steady. The hand that hesitated begins to move. Confidence grows in the soil of action. The more you move forward, the more the doors respond. Confidence does not wait for feelings to align, it leads them. Many people stand before great doors but never enter because their inner dialogue is filled with doubt. They whisper to themselves, maybe I'm not ready, maybe this isn't for me. And as they speak, the door remains silent, but the moment they shift that inner conversation, the atmosphere changes. When you tell yourself, this door was designed with me in mind, the lock begins to loosen. Life listens to the language of confidence. Confidence does not deny difficulty, it denies defeat. It looks at the door and says, you may be closed, but you are not permanent. Confidence recognizes that the same force that created the door also created the key, and that key often lies within. Every time you affirm your right to succeed, you turn that key. Every time you act as though the answer is near, you hear the hinges begin to move. Confidence never begs for access, it assumes it. When you walk in confidence, you stop asking, will it happen? And begin saying, it is happening. You stop waiting for signs and start creating them. The confident person sees possibilities where others see impossibilities. Confidence does not wait for conditions to be perfect. It steps forward in faith and causes perfection to manifest. The moment you move, the door senses the vibration of your certainty and begins to swing open. Confidence is contagious. When you stand tall in what you believe, others rise around you. When you carry peace in your stride and faith in your tone, you give others permission to believe as well. Confidence communicates without words. It is the silent sermon that tells the world, I have already received it in my spirit, and now I am walking into it in my reality. When you possess that inner assurance, the external world cannot resist responding. The universe seems to favor those who are confident. Resources align, people appear, timing adjusts. Confidence creates momentum. It pulls unseen help into motion. Closed doors that have been silent for years begin to shift because they were waiting for the sound of faith-filled footsteps. Confidence has a sound, and the door knows it well. Fear knocks timidly, but confidence knocks like it has a right to enter. Confidence is not loud, but it is powerful. It speaks through stillness, through composure, through persistence. When confidence meets resistance, does not retreat, it adjusts its stance and knocks again. Each knock carries more strength than the last. Confidence keeps declaring, keeps moving, keeps believing until what was once closed becomes wide open, not because the door suddenly changed, but because the one who stood before it finally did. Vision is the language of the unseen. It begins in the quiet places of the heart, where the eyes of the spirit see what the eyes of the flesh cannot. Every great move, every invention, every breakthrough began as a vision before it became a reality. The moment a person dares to speak that vision aloud, something begins to move in the invisible realm. Words are the bridge that carry vision from imagination to manifestation. Until it is spoken, it remains an idea. But when it is declared, it becomes a command to creation. There is a divine law that governs all creation. Nothing appears until it is first spoken. Before the world took shape, before light separated from darkness, there was a voice that said, let there be. Sound came before sight. Declaration came before demonstration. This is the pattern of power, to see it within and then to speak it without. Many people have vision in their minds, but silence on their lips. And because of that silence, their vision remains imprisoned. The moment you speak what you have seen, give life permission to respond. When vision is spoken, it begins to take form in the hearts of others. Words are seeds that carry images. When you describe your dream, others begin to see it too. Speech paints the picture that faith can build upon. If you never speak it, no one can agree with it. No resources can align with it. The world cannot partner with what has not been declared. Speaking your vision is not about boasting. It is about birthing. It is the act of releasing what has been conceived in your spirit into the atmosphere of creation. A spoken vision activates alignment. The moment you declare it, unseen forces begin to organize themselves around your words. People you do not yet know begin to be drawn to your purpose. Opportunities that were once invisible begin to reveal themselves. Vision that remains silent remains stagnant, but vision that is spoken begins to attract direction. You may not know how it will happen. Speaking it starts the motion. The words become a compass pointing you toward the path of fulfillment. There is power in speaking what does not yet exist. The natural mind resists this truth because it only believes what it can see. But vision operates from the unseen, from faith, from divine imagination. When you say, I will build, even before you have the resources, heaven begins to take notice. When you declare, I will rise, even before the opportunity appears, the atmosphere begins to shift. The spoken word pulls the invisible closer. What is far off begins to move toward you not because you forced it, but because you announced it. Vision demands a voice. Cannot hold it in your heart forever. It must be released. The more you speak it, the more it becomes real to you. Each declaration solidifies belief, and belief fuels momentum. There are people who saw their dreams die, not because the dream was wrong, but because they never dared to give it sound. A silent vision suffocates, but a spoken vision breathes. When you speak it, it gains breath, form, and direction. Every visionary in history understood this secret. They spoke before they saw. They declared while others doubted. They held conversations about possibilities that seemed impossible. But the power of their words turned abstract ideas into tangible realities. They were not waiting for proof, they were producing it. Visionaries understand that the mouth is a creative instrument. What you speak consistently becomes the atmosphere you live in. The challenge is that fear always tries to silence the voice of vision. Fear says, what if it doesn't happen? Faith says, what if it does? Fear says, you might look foolish. Faith says, speak it anyway. The test of true vision is whether you can declare it even when there is no evidence to support it. The greatest acts of faith happen when a person dares to speak something into existence while everything around them says it is impossible. The spoken word challenges reality to rise to a higher truth. When you speak your vision, you are not just talking about the future, you are calling it forth. You are summoning possibilities that are waiting for your command. The universe responds to certainty. It listens to the tone of conviction. When you speak timidly, the response is weak. But when you declare boldly, this shall be, you release a sound that carries authority. That sound penetrates the unseen, rearranges circumstances, and causes alignment to take place. Vision must be declared even in the midst of delay. Sometimes the distance between speaking and seeing is long, but that delay is not denial, it is development. The words you speak travel ahead of you, preparing the ground for your arrival. Each time you repeat your vision, you are watering the seed planted by your first declaration. Though it may not yet appear, something is happening beneath the surface. Words are working where your eyes cannot see. Silence is the enemy of manifestation. You cannot give birth to a vision you refuse to speak. The more you hold it inside, the heavier it becomes until frustration replaces faith. But the moment you open your mouth and declare it, you release the pressure and invite progress. The spoken word lightens the soul and strengthens the spirit. It is your way of saying to the universe, I am ready. And when you are ready, doors begin to respond. People begin to appear and paths begin to unfold. Vision does not wait for comfort. It thrives in courage. Speaking what you have seen before it happens is an act of boldness that breaks limitations. It is an act of trust that says, even if I cannot see it now, I know it already exists. You do not need to understand how, you only need to speak. Words create direction, and direction creates movement. Each time you declare your vision, draw closer to its fulfillment, because spoken vision carries within it the power to become flesh. When you dare to speak your vision before it happens, you are declaring to the world that faith is stronger than sight, that the unseen is more powerful than the seen. Keep speaking, keep believing, keep declaring. For every word you release in faith moves the invisible closer to becoming visible, and every vision spoken with conviction is already on its way to becoming reality.